Hello, and welcome back to the Digital Yogi podcast. My name is Charlotte Reynolds. I'm a digital strategy and business coach, and I help ambitious yoga and wellness experts to scale and grow their businesses. And this is the first episode in a brand new series. It's been a little while. I think summer I posted the last episode, and I'm back, and I'm very excited to have a very special guest joining me for this episode. Charlie Follows. She's a super successful yoga teacher and YouTuber, and I'm really looking forward to having her spill all of her secrets about how she has grown such a successful channel and community and everything that goes on behind the scenes. Quickly, before we get into that, I want to just fill you in on two current things that I have available, ways that you can work with me. So the first one is one-to-one. I have, for the first time in what could be over a year, for the first time I've got some capacity to take on new clients. For those of you that haven't been following me along on Instagram, it's been a bit of a wild ride. I've been so fully booked that I haven't been able to take anybody new on to work with me for one-to-one coaching, but I will do from September. So if you are interested in scaling your business, getting help with ads and funnels, marketing, sales, signing new clients, then send me a DM. And then also the Ibiza Mastermind is actually happening. So I'm going to be running a in-person working holiday retreat for business owners. It's a 5-day holiday, a chance to work on your business, scale your business, meet other people, and also just have a really fun time doing it. So I've got 3 spaces left, 1 double room and 1 twin room. So if you're interested in coming along this September for a little getaway to Ibiza to work on your business, then again, send me a DM. Let's get into the episode. So my guest on today's episode is Charlie Follows. She is a YouTuber and a yoga teacher, and she's got 620,000 subscribers on YouTube and a community of almost 150,000 on Instagram. And she has people practicing with her daily from all over the world. Charlie and I first met when I was supporting her with her business. I think it was towards the end of last year. And I knew instantly when I started to learn a little bit more about exactly what she does and how she runs her business, I was like, absolutely need her as a guest on my podcast the moment that I start it back up. So Charlie, I would say, is hands down one of the most driven and hardworking people that I've ever worked with. The amount of content that she puts out consistently, like really high quality content, is genuinely mind-blowing. And so I'm really looking forward to having Charlie here to spill all of the secrets on being a content creator and growing a successful YouTube channel. So hi, Charlie. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Thank you for such a lovely intro. I feel honoured.
And you said this is your first ever podcast. I can't believe no one's invited you to be on a podcast before.
Well, I've had invites, but it just didn't feel relevant. It felt a little bit awkward, and I was like, no one wants to hear this. Like, it just feels strange. So I waited until I was doing something that felt like it was right, and this did. So I'm excited that it's my first.
Perfect. I'm really glad to have you on. Firstly, just tell us about your YouTube channel.
Okay, so before I tell you about the channel, I tell you why I focus so heavily on YouTube, because my practice started on YouTube. When I was in university, I didn't really have the money to get to a studio, and I didn't have a studio to go to at the time. So I found classes on YouTube. That's why I focus so heavily on posting classes now on YouTube, because I create content for the people who can't get to a studio, or where going to a studio just isn't an option for them because they've got kids to take care of, or they've got a schedule that doesn't allow for it. So that is my main focus with the channel, is to create a place where people can go to and they can do a class in 15 minutes if that's what they have, or they can do a class that gives them the full studio experience if that's what they want, but they can't manage to get to a studio themselves. I try to create little shorts that explain the things that people want to know, because I spend hours reading through the comments, and then I flag comments that come up where it's a question that people repeatedly ask. And I'm like, oh, that's something
Mm.
that people really need to know. And in class, I can't always stop the class and go into loads of detail about one single thing, because, people might be waiting for a while. They probably just want me to get to the point. So instead, I try to keep that to the tutorials and have that as a place that people can go to as a resource for information. The classes are places that people can go to move, to reconnect with themselves. And then the community is an area where people can go to add requests, to engage with other people and things like that. So that's kind of how I break down the channel, as separate places depending on what your interest is. If you just want your answers, if you just want your questions answered, or if you want to do a class.
So the amount of content that you put out consistently is really, really impressive. Like, it's one thing that really blew me away when I first started working with you, was the consistency, and you putting out content on your YouTube channel, on your YouTube shorts, and on Instagram, all really amazing high quality content. Like, one thing I'd love to know is what goes into that level of consistency, because I think a lot of people listening would definitely struggle with consistency. So what goes into it? How do you make sure that you get things out and so much content?
So there's two tools that I use. So I do everything in batches. That's the most important thing to me. I go away and I do a filming trip, and I get a month or 2 months worth of classes filmed. And on top of that, I try to get as many little tutorials done at once, so that I can then go away and edit them and schedule them. So that's the one thing that I use. Another thing I use is that I have a calendar. I turned the wallpaper on my desktop into a calendar. So I put thumbnail images on each day of that calendar, and then I know which class is going out, or say which short is going out. And I do this, say, a month to 2 months ahead of time. And then I can flick
Wow.
through these images and see what I know is going out. And this way, it helps me keep track of everything that I need to film when I go on the filming trip. And then I know everything that is going out. And in this way, it doesn't get too overwhelming, and it becomes quite manageable, because I've done everything in bulk. And then it makes it easier to then bulk edit, bulk post, or bulk schedule. And then it runs quite smoothly like that.
How much content do you put out there?
Two YouTube classes a week, on a Wednesday and on a Sunday, sometimes on a Friday or a Sunday. And then 4 to 5 tutorials across YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Facebook. And then Instagram, I really keep Instagram just for nice pictures. It's my
Yeah.
place where I can have a little bit more of a creative space. It doesn't have to always be so educational. It's just, I really like taking nice pictures, and that's a place to share them.
Amazing. And how much of what you do you do yourself? Do you have a team, or do you outsource? Do you outsource anything?
No, no. I've tried. I don't think I'm the best at
Yeah.
working in a team, because I'm very much like, I get an idea and I want to do it straight away. So I do it. Whereas I struggle when it's got to go through lots of different people. It slows down the process. And what I do is quite quick. Idea generation, posting, if you work in this online world, it's so rapid. You have to constantly be creating and churning out new things. And I've just always found it quicker to do it myself. I probably will get to a point where I need some help. A few times this year, I've thought I must be mad doing this all myself. But at the end of the day, I like it because I know I had a hand in everything. I know
Yeah.
all of the bits of my business. And that's really important to me, that there isn't a single thing that I didn't take part in. I think
Mm.
that's really important, or at least it is to me.
Yeah. Do you enjoy the process of editing? Because I obviously follow you on Instagram, and I see those times where you're editing like a full 30-day challenge. You're like, editing again, back to editing. And I'm like, do you enjoy the process? Do you enjoy editing your own content? Or do you sometimes think, gosh, this is such a drag?
Yeah, of course I have days like that where I'm a bit like, I'm on day 24 of a 30-day challenge. I can't wait to get this done. But, of course, someone's going to feel like that when you've got that much work on. But then day to day, I really enjoy it. If I'm just editing one or two classes that day, I can put all of my attention into making those classes as great as I can make them. So yeah, I do really enjoy the process when I have time to take my time with it. When I'm filming and editing and doing everything for a challenge, it does become more stressful, just like any job does when you maximize the workload. Of course, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much.
And do you ever have those moments where you've got something scheduled in, like you need to film a number of classes in a particular location, and you just don't want to be on camera? Like, I have those days where I think I've really got to push a particular offer, or I really need to be showing up online this week, and I just don't feel like it. Do you
Mhm.
ever have that? And in those moments, what do you do? How do you overcome it?
Yeah, I have those moments frequently. I've had so many of those already this week because we all know as women, we have 2 weeks out of the month for most women where we're at our best. And then we have 2 weeks where we're just not feeling it and our brains are mush and I'm just not the best version of myself. And I have to accept that that's part of being a woman. So, of course, I have that. When I need to show up, though, I try to just remind myself that at the end of the day, it's a job. And certain things, I have to just separate myself and how I feel and just do what needs to be done. Because if I'm always doing things based on how I feel, then for those 2 weeks where I'm not feeling my best, I'm just not going to get much done and I'm not going to be very productive. So that's the mindset that I try to remind myself of. I spoke about this in my newsletter this week as well, because I think it relates to a lot of things. Exercise, when you really don't feel like doing it,
Mm.
you can't just sit around and wait to feel like it because you might not for a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks. So instead, you have to separate how you feel and just do the things that you know you need to do.
Can we take it back to when you first started out? Where did it all begin, your YouTube journey?
Um, About 6 months after I graduated as a teacher, I think I posted my first YouTube class. I don't know if it's still up there. I might have made it private because I was embarrassed of it because it's so awkward. But that was probably the first one. And then I was very inconsistent. I didn't really understand YouTube at that time because I thought it was going to be the same as Instagram or the same as other platforms. But it's just like Facebook is different to Instagram, TikTok is different to YouTube. It took me years and years to learn YouTube. And then it wasn't really until last year that I started taking YouTube really seriously and I was really
Mm.
committed to it. And then it's really taken off ever since then. So even though I was doing it in the background inconsistently, it's only really been a year and a half that I've really committed to it.
And what has the growth looked like for your YouTube channel?
From 2019, I think might have been when I started. I think I was quite invisible on YouTube for quite a long time. I would say I was quite invisible on YouTube until last year. Around February time, things really started to take off because I really committed to it. I started posting shorts more. Um, I started engaging with people more and just taking it seriously, treating it like a full time job. So, really, up until February of last year, there wasn't much growth. It was very slow. And then everything that you see now has really happened since February last year.
Wow. Wow. What do you think it was that prompted such um a steep growth in your
Um,
subscribers and community?
Posting shorts really helped because
Yeah.
they typically answer the questions or share the little things that people don't get answered in classes because classes move so quickly and people probably go to so many classes never knowing if they're really doing this pose or this transition right. So I started posting content that explained those things that they probably weren't having answered. And I think that really helped. And then the way YouTube works is the more people see your shorts, the more they get recommended your other long form videos. And then the more people watch the shorts, the more people started to watch the long form. And now I think a lot of people share things with people as well. So they share things with their
Yeah.
family members, with their friends, and then it starts to take off a lot easier once you've got some momentum. But the shorts were the thing that really they were the catalyst, and then everything has just snowballed from there.
If somebody was just starting out with their own YouTube channel, what would you say would be the key things that they need to consider?
I could go on for a day about this because it really depends. One thing I would say is to try to focus on quality, not quantity. Um, because great video quality and great sound quality, more importantly, are the things that will give people a better experience. Um, Try to focus on the little details, and this is for your long form videos. You know, what kind of environment are you creating for people? Um, because it's not just the class, it's the experience, I like to say. Those are really important things, but also to try to add value and to understand what your skill set is best, what your best skill set is. So for some people, they're really great at teaching poses, and maybe going down the tutorial route would be best for them. For some people, they're really strong with teaching the philosophy or the history. And then that might be another avenue that they could go down. Or for the other people like me, they just really like teaching classes and sharing little tutorials. And that's what I focus on. So I think initially it's about looking at your options, because you don't just need to do the same as what everyone else is doing because it works for them. It might not work for you. That is a really key point. When I first started out, I was trying to just mimic what other people were doing. And I realized people will eventually find you and like you for what you're doing and your uniqueness.
Mm.
So those would be my key takeaways. Try to focus on quality, try to find and focus on where your skills lie and sharing those things. And then, trying to carve your own path instead of doing what other people are doing.
Mm. I love that final point because that's actually a conversation I was just having this morning with a client about sort of staying in your own lane. And sometimes it's so easy when you're consuming lots of content from people in a similar industry or a similar niche. It's very easy to start changing what you're doing and seeing what other people, like mimicking others, like you said. And actually, often it's best to just stick with your own strategy, stick with your own on your own path. I think it's good to check in what other people are doing in the space. Like, for
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
before I started planning out this podcast episode, I went and listened to a few episodes and just got up to date. You know, what are people doing now? Are people doing this, that, the other? But then that's it. Don't check too much and just do it the way that you know that has proved to be successful in the past.
Hmm. Hmm.
How much content of other yoga YouTubers do you consume? And in what
At the
way?
moment, I just consume Spanish yoga classes because I'm
Ah,
learning Spanish. So that is the main thing that I consume. There are a couple of others. I mean, Boho Beautiful will always be my favorite. Juliana is incredible. She was the person who got me started with yoga. So I go back to her classes from time to time. Um, there are a couple of others like Breathe and Flow are an amazing channel. I love Move with Nicole. She's not just a yoga teacher, but she does Pilates and she is tough. Like her 10-minute, 15-minute classes will like challenge you no end. So I do dip in and out, but I would say at the moment it's mainly for my language skills that I use the yoga classes for than to actually practice yoga. Although I'm practicing, it's more for me like listening out for the cues and to learn.
sure, that's such a good idea. I might start practicing in Spanish. I'm
Yeah.
also for anyone listening that's Charlie's audience and doesn't know who I am, I currently live in Ibiza, so um, I am always trying to find ways to improve my Spanish, and I feel like doing yoga in Spanish would be a great shout because it's one thing I'm very familiar with something that I want to learn. So it's such a good idea. And I did see your, I think, did you post something on your Instagram stories of you teaching in Spanish? I was
Yeah.
so impressed.
Yeah. I'm trying to get over my nervousness because it's one thing to teach in your native language, but if it's your second language and it's one that you are, like, I would say I'm an advanced beginner at this point, but still very much beginner. So I'm trying to just share tidbits of me talking in Spanish to get over my nervousness, and then I'll feel more confident to actually share full length classes in Spanish.
Wow. So that's the plan, is to
Yeah.
eventually be
Yeah.
sharing. Oh,
I set myself
amazing.
the goal at the start of the year that I was going to teach my first class in Spanish by the end of the year. And we're in the 7th month of the year, so I need to get going in the next few months. But yeah, that's my goal.
I'm intrigued why you selected that as a goal of yours. What was the motivation behind it?
I've been learning Spanish for years. I would say 3 or 4 years now. I love the language, and it was just a personal goal that then because I could make it about teaching, it kind of added more importance to the goal. And it meant that I wasn't just working towards it for myself, I was working towards it for other people so that I can share with them. I know I have a lot of people who practice with me from South America and Spain and other Spanish speaking countries. So I thought, well, the audience is there. How cool would it be for me to learn a language and do something that I'm already doing? Um, so yeah, that was where the goal came from.
Nice. Amazing. You've inspired me. You've inspired me to maybe um, seek out some Spanish yoga classes until yours are ready, obviously.
Mhm. Oh, thank
Let's talk about business.
you. Mhm.
So you've got your YouTube channel, and I know that you also have other offerings like
Mhm.
courses and programs that you offer. So fill me in, like, how do you monetize what you do, and what are the ways that you bring in revenue from this community that you've built?
Mhm. So obviously, I make money through AdSense on YouTube. This is why I always say to people, like, don't worry about subscribing to anything because by you doing the classes, I'm able to make a living. So it's a win-win for everyone. It's why I love YouTube. Then I also offer programs which are paid, just a one-time payment for lifetime access, and those go into a little bit more detail than you would normally get. I love them because, unlike a workshop or something like that, where you can't really take the information home with you, you can access it online for the same price as a workshop and continue to come back to it. And then I'm also a new thing that I'm just introducing is coaching with teachers because I really want to work with other teachers who are maybe struggling with certain aspects, whether it's the teaching itself or whether it's the other things. Because when you're a teacher, you're not just a teacher, you're wearing so many hats. You're admin, marketer, accountant, now probably an editor, videographer, all of these things. So I'm branching out into helping yoga teachers with that side of things because I know how many years it took me to build that skill set. It's not easy. And sometimes you do just need some advice. And a lot of teachers go down the route of doing an expensive training when that might not be the thing that they need. Maybe they just need a consultation. Maybe they just need to be pointed in the right direction instead of going and spending another 2,000, 3,000 pounds to find that actually it
Yeah.
didn't set them up in the way that they needed. So those are the things that I focus on to make a living.
Perfect. Yeah, I love that because like one of the programs you offer about sequencing
Mhm.
and creative sequencing for classes, I think, wow, like that is such the perfect thing for you to offer because the reality is you're planning multiple, like, how, I do wonder, like, how have you not run out of ideas by now? Like, how many classes have you shared on YouTube, do you know?
I think it's like 600 or something now at this point. I have
No.
no idea. I have no
But how have
idea.
you not run out of ideas? Like, you've definitely got to have a creative mind to be able to
Mm.
keep thinking up new
Yeah.
class ideas.
Also, we have so many resources now. Like you see people all of the time sharing their sequences on Instagram and TikTok and everywhere. And I'm just always keeping my eyes open. If I see a practice clip of someone doing something on Instagram and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Maybe I could include that in a class, or that's a really great transition. But I think it could go better with this sequence. And then I constantly make notes on my phone. And it might be that I don't use that sequence or that transition straight away, but I save it in my notes and I bring it into a class in the future. And then in that way, the classes are always evolving. Hopefully, they never feel predictable or boring. And it always feels like, wow, something new, which is what I really want it to be.
Yeah. Nice. And so, yeah, YouTube brings in money from advertising, and then
Sense.
you have
Yeah.
your other. Do you,
Mhm.
is it a good, at what stage do you start to make a decent amount of
It
revenue
wasn't
from YouTube
until
itself?
last year that I actually started to make money where I was like, I can call this my job now. Like, I can. At the time, so I was working for my family business and I was making leather chairs for vintage cars. So, like, way different to what I'm doing now. And I was doing that on the side as well as YouTube. And I probably did YouTube for 4 years before I got to the point where I was like, I can actually call this my job now. And then I gradually phased out working, doing trimming. And then now I do this full time. So it's definitely not been. I know some people, they probably do it in much less time than that, but for me, it really did take quite a long time.
Yeah, but I think it's also important to note that growth can be very slow on lots of different social media
Yeah,
channels.
yeah.
I think we sometimes do see these massive channels and think and forget actually the journey and the
Mhm.
process that led to that stage.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm happy that it took me a long time because I appreciate it so much more now. And I still feel like I'm like how I was 2, 3 years ago where no one knew me and where when people say, "Oh, I recommend you to my friend or whatever," I'm like, "Really? Me? Thank you." Like, I still find it amazing that people even practice with me and I never want to lose that because I think once you lose that, then I want it to always be special. I want it to always mean something that people are practicing with me because it does.
You've mentioned about engaging a lot more with your followers. I've seen the comments on your videos. Like, honestly, the what you put out there like inspires so many people. Um, but then there's also, I've also imagine there's a dark side as well with comments and people not being as kind. What do you tend to see in terms of engagement, and how do you handle any of that negative like energy that you get?
You know what? I'm quite lucky, and I would say there's probably like 0.1% nasty comments, and the rest are absolutely lovely. And in the beginning, I didn't know how to handle the nasty comments, and it seemed like the nasty comments were the ones coming from shorts because I think the audience that sees my shorts might not necessarily be the audience that knows me personally, that is doing my classes, that there are different people. Sometimes people see things and they just say what they think straight away, no filter. Um, and I always think the best response is no response. So that tends to be how I handle it. But I am quite lucky that I hope nothing that I put out there is problematic. Like I'm quite careful that everything that I post, I try to think like, is this helping someone? And is it offending anyone? If it's helping, great, post it. If it's offending someone, like if it's trying to create a rise out of people, or, if it's trying to just get some sort of attention, like I'm not interested in posting that kind of thing. And I think that's probably why I have really nice comments as well, is because my intention is always to help people and not just to get some kind of response. I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
better way of wording that, but you know what I mean.
And like, what kind of things are they saying in these negative comments? Like, I just can't imagine what they would have a problem with. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what could they have an issue with?
I don't know. Like some of them are just none come to mind because whenever I read them, I'm always like, initially I read it and I take it personally. And then I think to myself, is this going to affect me in 48 hours? If not, don't give it another moment's thought. I remember a while ago, one really got me, and this is before I'd learned not to rise to these comments and not to react. But someone had commented saying that like I wasn't a proper yoga teacher, and they'd gone through one of my videos and they'd critiqued my alignment, they'd critiqued my breathing, they'd critiqued my way of talking, and like it was like a full, almost like a novel of all of the reasons why I wasn't doing a very good job. And at the time, I felt like I really wanted to defend myself, and I wanted to be like, well, okay, you're allowed to have your opinion. Like, you know, I did feel like it was unfair, but at that time, I realized like, and actually, it was a podcast that I listened to where someone else mentioned how they dealt with comments, and they said that those people writing those negative comments are never going to be people that are in your corner. So don't worry about them. There's millions of people on YouTube. Not everyone is going to be, your audience. Not everyone's going to like what you're putting out there. So sometimes you just have to quickly swipe past the negative comments and just not allow it to like even enter your attention. And then that's how I deal
Yeah.
with it. But that was one that springs to mind. I was like, wow, I've really got under this person's skin and I don't know how. But yeah.
Yeah, because like you said, it's not like you're putting things out there on purpose to be controversial. Like a lot of creators
That's
do
right.
do that.
Yeah.
They know that if they
Uh-huh.
put something out there that's going to be controversial, it's going to spark
Mhm.
conversation, it's going to get more engagement. It's not like you do that. So it feels very wholesome content. Cool. Well, screw them, whatever. So I asked on Instagram if anyone had any questions about that they would love to put to you. And you know what? A lot of people wanted to know about what you do personally. What do you do outside of yoga?
You mean like
Would you?
hobbies or
Yeah, I because you do keep your content very specific. It's
yeah.
classes, it's tutorials,
Yeah,
the odd bit
yeah.
about where you're filming, but you really do keep it very
Yeah.
much focused on
I
the
like to
topic
be
of yoga.
I like to have my private life private. I was never going to be one of those people that shared every little detail because that's not what I want. I am quite a private person, and somehow I just found myself in a situation where I'm very public facing with the work that I do. In my own time, though, I have probably too many hobbies. Like, I love making clothes when I get time. I love to climb. I just started jujitsu a couple of months ago, which is really fun.
Great.
I walk my dog. I love to read, to make food, you know, all the normal
Mm.
things.
And you also get to travel to lots of amazing places like Ibiza.
Yeah, yeah, that is one of the perks of the job. Also, because I live in England, we do not get reliable weather, and I like to film outside. And even now it's July, and today is probably the first sunny day we've had in weeks. And I just can't get anything done outside the way I can do if I go away for a
Yeah.
week and I can rely on the weather there. So that's why I do it a lot of the
Well, however, you have had some challenging filming moments, even traveling away.
Yeah. Yeah, these are the things that people don't see. Just the wind is probably the biggest thing. When I travel, I use a travel mat. It's 1 millimeter thick. So there's nothing keeping it down. And every time it's windy, the mat flies away. So I can be in the middle of a pose. And once I was in a standing pose at the back of the mat, and the wind, like a big gust came and lifted my mat up and it just slapped me in the face. And I just stood there like great. Um, so yeah, that happens sometimes. Obviously, noise issues are a big thing when you're outside, especially if you're in a public place. If I'm filming on a beach, which I don't really do so much now because I don't like to be in people's way, but when I used to, you've got to consider people are going to walk past and they're probably going to be like, curious about what's going on and they're not going to know what you're filming for. So they walk past really slowly and they're in your shot for ages. But yeah, they're all funny stories that I like to tell, and it makes it, it makes it a fun work day.
I think it was one of your 30-day challenges. I can't remember when I was looking at it, or and I could see all the rocks perched on the sides of the mat, and I could see it flipping over. And I think I remember you were recording those when we were having regular sessions together, and I was like, oh my
Mm,
god, that was that day when it
yeah.
was.
There was a storm in Mallorca actually, and I was really worried. My tripods on, they're quite sturdy, but if it's really windy, I was worried that my cameras were going to blow over. So I built like little forts around my camera tripods, rocks like all the way like bordered around my mat. But it was one of those where when I'm on a filming trip, I have so much time to get everything done. So it's not a case of, oh, I'll just wait till the weather gets better. Like I have a schedule that I've got to keep every day. So I really didn't have a choice. I just had to stick with it, even though it was crazy windy.
Mm. You've mentioned there about having a schedule, needing to stick to it, keeping to the agenda. Now, I'd say there's quite a lot. You've obviously got a really strong work ethic, I would say. But I'm sure there's also loads of like mindset work that you've had to do to get to that stage. Like, not everybody is that focused and determined and
Mm.
like get it done kind of mentality. I think we've already spoken about. There's days where you just procrastinate and sit on things and just don't feel like doing it. What kind of like mindset work do you feel you've had to do to get to the stage of I'm just going to get it done no matter what?
Mm. Mm. I think just going back to the point that I made earlier, sometimes you just have to separate how you feel from what you know you need to get done. A lot of the times there's pressure, and I'm one of those people that really works well under pressure. If I have
Mm.
something looming where I know it needs to be done, I get it done because I need to get it done. And also because I don't have a team of people, it always comes back to me. So I think the pressure element really helps. One thing that I will say that I do think is really important is recognizing your mood that day and having things that really help you to get into the state of mind that you need to be in to do your best work. So I used to be one of those people that would get quite emotional and I would struggle with my emotions, and then I would go and sit and I wouldn't be able to do anything with myself. But now I realize that the best way to take myself out of that headspace is to go for a run or do some kind of movement that helps me shift my perspective really quickly so that I don't sit and wallow. Because then after that 20-minute run, I come back and I'm like, I don't even know what was the problem. And then I'm able to refocus. And I think we all have our different things, whether it's going and making like a cup of coffee, going and talking to a friend, but finding those things that help you to get into the best mindset every single day so that you can show up and do the things that you need to do. Because I can't tell you how many times I just thought, I do not want to go for this run, or I do not want to do this thing. And I've made myself do it regardless of how I'd felt. And I've come back and I've been like, oh, I feel great now. There wasn't anything wrong. I just needed to shift that stagnant energy. I just needed to shift my mood. And now I'm ready. So that's probably one of the best habits I've gotten into that really helps.
Yeah, I know for sure that if I do some exercise first thing in the morning, like a hike or a walk or something like that, or a movement class, that without a doubt, I'm going to be so much more productive for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. If I don't move first thing in the morning, the rest of the day just seems to move like snail's pace. um, okay, a couple of questions here from Instagram. One is, how many hours of yoga do you do a day?
I wouldn't even say it's hours. Some days it's probably more like 20 minutes. Some days it's like, I have a busy life too. Just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean that I'm doing an hour and a half every day. So I don't have a schedule that I stick to. I fit my practice around my life. And just like all women, I need to take a couple of days off every month. And I take a little bit of a ladies' holiday and I don't do as much. So it's probably less than what people think. Half an hour, maybe.
But when you're doing when intense sessions of filming, you might be
Ooh.
practicing for a lot longer.
Then I would say, yeah, sometimes it's 3 to 4 hours a day because, like I say, I've paid to be somewhere. These trips are expensive, so I need to get the most out of them. And by filming more classes, I make it I can justify the cost of the trip for every class that I film because I know that's then money that I will generate through AdSense for that class. So that's one of my motivations as well to get as much done. And also it means that then I
Mm.
can come home and relax a little bit. So that tends to be how I work. I get loads done and then I relax and then I repeat the process.
Yeah, I love that. Just batch creating lots of content in one go.
Mhm.
What motivated you to start doing yoga in the first place?
Actually, I kind of fell into it. So I got into Boho Beautiful's Pilates videos first. And then I was really getting into that. And then one day I just clicked on one of Juliana's yoga videos, gave it a try, and I was just hooked from then. Um, and it just became part of my daily routine. And at first, it wasn't even like I needed it explaining to me, like, oh, this is helpful for your mind as well as your body. There was just really subtle things that started to change, subtle things that I started to notice. And I realized, wow, there's something here. I feel like I'm becoming a better person. I feel like I'm more conscious, more aware. I feel like I'm better to the people around me. And then it spiraled from there. And now here I am. I don't even know how many years later. It's definitely a practice for life now.
Tips for filming, because you've mentioned that you think quality is really, really important to get
Hmm.
right from the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, what are the key things that somebody starting out creating content,
Hmm.
specifically like long form video, what do they need to consider? What are your top tips?
Hmm. Okay, so just in terms of the background, if you're filming outside, consider lighting, consider the time of day. Sometimes I have to wait an entire day just to get the sun in the right place. It's annoying, but it makes such a difference because if you're shooting in the middle of the day, the light's going to be really harsh. If you're shooting early morning, late evening, the light's going to be much softer. It's going to be much more appealing. You're not going to have an overexposed shot. If you're shooting inside, then you might need to use artificial lighting to make your shot more appealing. White walls can be really difficult because they never quite look white. They always look a little bit yellow or a little bit gray. So you have to find a setup that you can consistently repeat, having the lights in the same place to get that consistency. Otherwise, your white wall is always going to look a different shade of white. Um, Play around with angles. If you have one camera, then obviously just have it to the side just so that you show the whole shot. Spend some time before you start filming to get your focus right. This is a really important thing. I do like a little um I almost do like a practice flow so I can make sure that every little bit of my body is in shot. So when I reach my arms up when I'm standing up, the tips of my fingers are in shot. Or when I'm lying down, I open a leg out to the side, that leg is still in shot because when things go out of frame, it can look a little bit amateur. So that's one thing because all of these things are really all in the setup. So that's a really important point is to take more time in the setup because it's really easy to just think, okay, I've got it. Good, let's go. And then you go and you edit afterwards and you think, ooh, that wasn't quite right. Another thing is try to make your background the least busy possible. Obviously, like plants and decorations and things are nice, but try to make it so that you can see you, and so that the attention isn't drawn to your decorations, but it's on you. Another thing to think about, and this is something that someone mentioned to me once, is I used to wear a lot of black leggings, and people used to comment that it was really difficult to see. So I try to wear a color clothing that contrasts against my background. So I change colors quite a lot, but these are just things to consider. If you're shooting and you're in a dark background, wear a light color so that you contrast against it. If you're shooting in a light background, maybe wear a dark color, but make sure that you can see the outline of your body, because that's what people are going to use as a reference to be able to see if they do see you. Um, Next thing, and this is actually the most important thing, and it's not even about the video, but it's about the audio. Invest in a good quality microphone. I would say invest in a microphone before you invest in a more expensive camera. Because if your cues are clear, people won't even look at the video. Like, I go to lengths to make my videos lovely, but people don't even watch them most of the time. Like maybe for the intro, and then after that, they're just listening to the audio. But if that audio is not very appealing, like if it's painful to listen to, there's a lot of background noise, things like this, people are just going to switch off and they'll just go to another video that's clearer. So I would say take the time to invest in a good microphone. I use one that is like a headset mic now because the microphone is closest to my mouth. Because when you're practicing yoga, when you have a clip-in mic, your mouth is going to be moving. You're not always going to be projecting your voice into the microphone. That's why I opt for the one that's closest to my face, because I'm always projecting my voice into that mic. So the sound is going to be level throughout. Like these are quite detailed things to focus on in the beginning. I would just go back to basics and just try and get the best quality sound that you can, and then you can improve over time. Um, but these are all things to consider, especially if you're filming in your house. Say if you're in a room where there's hard floors and there's nothing on the walls, the sound is going to reverb. So when you start understanding the way sound works, you need to put up some blankets or something to cushion the room a little bit to deaden the sound so it doesn't reverb. It seems like such a minor thing, or maybe it seems like quite a big effort to go to get good sound, but these are the things that people are doing to create the quality sound. So these are things to think about. I used to hang up hangings and I used to put rugs on the floor just to try to make the sound a little bit better. That was a lot. I hope that
No, so helpful. And while I've got you sharing, spilling all of your secrets, I'll also ask, what are the tips that you have for people who might want to get more views and more subscribers on their videos on YouTube?
I would say I feel like I know more tips of what not to do than what to
Yeah.
do. So I'm going to share the things not to do, and then people can pave their own path and decide what fits them best, because some people will, everyone's different, right? So I would say what not to do is things that I've found people don't like is too much talking. Like people have come for some peace and quiet. People have come to tune in with their body and their breath. They don't need the lecture. There's already enough noise going on in their life. So I find people really like a simple cue that is clear, easy to understand, and silence. Every now and again, add in a little tidbit that's helpful. But if you think about how much noise there is in people's lives now, people don't want to go to a yoga class and then just be met with more noise. It's overstimulating and it's not the peaceful experience that people came for. So that is my big thing that people always say to me. Another thing I would say is music. It can be really tempting to put in music because you like it and because you think that it creates a great experience. But it's so easy to pick music that another person isn't going to like. And then straight away, they're just not going to do that class because they can't remove that sound from the video. So instead, I would recommend not including any sound and then leaving it up to people to play their own music in the background if they want, because I know loads of people who do that. But by having no sound, you give people that option. As soon as you include sound, you take away that option. I would say try to keep your intros concise. You don't need to ask people to like and subscribe. They'll do that anyways if they like it and if they want to subscribe. But by you asking, I just don't think people really like that. And it doesn't need to be the first thing that you say to people. I would say, in my experience, people just want to get into it. They've come to do a yoga class and they've only got 20 minutes, so they don't have time to listen to a full intro and hear your life story. They just want to know, is this class for me? What is it including, so they can feel ready, prepared for it, and then they just want to get into it. 15-second intro, something like that is best, because if you're waffling on for a minute, that person's lost interest. I doubt people are going to stick around for a minute, especially if you're new to YouTube and they don't already know you. People see like the Yoga with Adrians and the huge channels doing things. It's okay for them to do it because they've established the audience, so people will listen to them. But if you're just trying to establish an audience, you have to assume that people don't know you and people have just come for the service that you are providing. So if you can focus on providing that value and creating the best experience for them, they will stick around and they will share with people. So those are my biggest things that I've learned. More what not to do, but hopefully it helps you see the kind of experience that people are really wanting from YouTube, because people don't have a lot of time. They just want to get into it.
I think a lot of those tips or mistakes, things to avoid, can apply across YouTube and also podcasts and
Mm-hmm.
also social media too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's super, super helpful. What is your vision with the business going forwards? Have you got any goals?
I'd really like to start teaching teachers, not full length trainings. Um, I don't think that's where my skill set lies, but I do think I'm very good at teaching people good communication, teaching people how to create classes and how to churn out a lot of classes, potentially helping people with their online pursuits, because there's so many skills that I've had to learn that I would love to share with others. So that's definitely a direction. Just keeping everything under this umbrella of teaching. Like, I'm not interested in brand deals or like none of that interests me. I just want to keep it about teaching people and then in time teaching teachers.
Yeah, do you know what? That's actually one thing that now that you've said it, I never really considered. But yeah, brand deals and sponsorship. I don't see you promoting any,
No,
hydration drinks or
no,
pre-workouts or yoga leggings. I never
no,
see
no.
that. So tell is that a deliberate choice? It's not really your
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah, it's by choice. I get lots of emails every day, and I just politely respond and I say, "I'm sorry, I don't do brand deals. I don't do paid promotions. I focus on being a yoga teacher." There's other people who would do that wonderfully, and they would probably create a really witty video that is entertaining. So you know it's sponsored, but you watch it anyways because the person's entertaining and you like them. And I just think, leave those people to do the brand deals because they do it well. I'm going to be really awkward. And also, it just isn't something that I want to do. So, yeah.
Nice. That's it. It's my final question. Thank you so much for everything, for sharing all of your wisdom, and a little bit more about the behind the scenes of what goes into running a successful YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've had a lot of fun.
You're very